I have been fighting a depression for the better part of 2 weeks. It is a slow, long, lingering and deliberate depression. The type of depression that does not leave me feeling sad as such, but drains me of all energy and any and all ability to enjoy anything, which in turn makes it nearly impossible to get into a headspace where I am able to do much without thinking that it is, at heart, futile. And then, just to really shake the core of my haphazardly put together cerebral cortex, this possessive fuckery is in deep conspiratory cooperation with a horrifying ailment which causes me chronic pain of some severity, as well as chronic fatigue, this also of some severity. This, my friends, is a recipe for disaster. A grade A psychological collapse. If I don't keep it in check, that is. Of course, depression is nothing new to me. This is, more likely than not, the same depression I've been fighting on and off for 17 years. I will absolutely admit that I draw a lot of despair from the ever-increasing infringements on allowed speech and allowed action. The world is balancing on the edge of a razor blade, slowly being cut in half. Tiptoeing about, walking on eggshells, so as not to offend those who must not take offense. The protected and the pampered who cannot comprehend that people hold different beliefs and values. It is, however, far too easy to lay the burden of blame strictly on this and this alone. It goes deeper than that, as these things usually do. Truth be told, I am burdened with a melancholy and an overabundance of pessimism. Well, that is to say, pessimism in my darkest moments and realism in my lighter moments. As the world stands, it leaves me precious little room in which to maneuver and elaborate on the structure of my mind and expect to be taken seriously. This, it would seem, goes for men in general. The feminists are quite content with telling men that they must not hide their feelings. Then they ridicule and protest whenever men try to talk about their feelings, in particular when doing so under the tainted term men's rights advocacy. Do it our way, or you hate women. The idea, it seems to me, is this. Men getting together to talk and ponder the struggles of men is proof of men's hatred of women. Men need to talk about their struggles in a way that is tolerated by women. That is to say, by feminists. Men struggling is, in the reality behind a looking glass inhabited by feminists, something that needs feminine values and virtues. Not masculine ones, as the masculine ones are inherently toxic, and so any struggles men face will also be fixed by feminism. And the serpent of feminism glides on, co-opting and devouring any and all in its path. Were feminism, as they have claimed whenever the topic comes up, concerned at all with men's issues, they would not be named feminism. Consider this. Men and women differ, often substantially, in the way they approach dealing with their feelings and a state of depression. Men often being drawn towards activity and solitude, i.e. actions done in solitude to work through the grief. Women being drawn towards networks of support to vent and talk and find comfort in others. One is not better than the other, it just works better for one or the other. I have often, in the murky past of my blue-pilled existence, attempted talking about my feelings, and have been met with little to no understanding when I do. More often than not, being told that others also struggle, and that I should consider their struggles before my own. This does not matter much in the end, as simply talking about how I feel has never offered me any form of release. Producing something of value, drawing from whatever inner turmoil is festering in my soul at the moment, does offer release. A most cathartic release, to be frank. Should I dare to be so bold, I would even claim that it might be of help to others with struggles similar to my own. A shared sigh and release of pent-up energies from whichever feeling has the strongest hold of heart and soul and mind in that instance. Of course, this does not break the shackles and chains of my ongoing battle with depression. It merely offers some release, an outwards expression of my never-ending inner monologues and or dialogues. The depression must do its work, trampling about in my subconscious until it makes like a tree and fucks off, only to come back at some later point in time. It might be a chemical imbalance. It might be a continued spiritual crisis of some form or other. Or it might just be that I am clinically insane. Blame whichever seems most suitable. What things I can do to alleviate this sense of misery, dread and doom are already done, or in the process of being done. And yet, enlightenment is far away. Thus, it is a perfect time to try and explain why I do what I do with this blog of mine and this YouTube channel of mine. Somehow, the fog in my mind will find its way onto the keyboard and then be spat out for consideration and judgment by the frozen tundras of the internet, haven for all outcasts and madmen, myself included. Release is sought and found in thoughts racing to find their place on the white background noise of digital paper. So why do I do what I do? Mainly, and as previously stated, it offers some release. Selfish reason, I will admit. Now, there is more to it than that, of course, as is the case with all advocacy work. I say advocacy work because that is, at heart, exactly what I am doing. It may have sown its seeds in a place of subjective experience. During my travels through the brightly lit sanctuaries of the internet, however, it is clear to me that my subjective experiences fall more in line with objective experiences for boys and men. That what I have experienced in regards to this gender war nonsense that has been going on for ages is a experience shared, in part or in full, by other boys and other men. That the misandry abundant in feminism is a coiled snake lurking underneath the mud and blood and bones of our societies. And the venom dribbling from the jaws of this snake drips into the muddled waters of our civilization, rippling outwards and poisoning everything in its path. A cataclysmic ripple effect tearing us down from within and from without. At one fell swoop, it has been unilaterally declared that, though both sexes suffer, women suffer hardest. Thus, only women's suffering will and must be dealt with. Men, being the ruling class in the corrupted minds of gender ideologues, is by definition the privileged class, and as such do not suffer anywhere near as much. When men do suffer, it is because men are the ruling class, and those men who do not make it to the top of the pyramid-like hierarchy of masculinity will suffer at the hands of stronger men. Just as women do, albeit not as much. In this way, feminists decry that they are the only ones who should be allowed to talk about and do something about gender and gender issues. Men as a group are the problem, and women as a group the solution. The arrogance astounds me. Feminism has managed to work its way into the collective consciousness of our species as the alpha and the omega of all things equality, sacrosanct and holy, and as such, everyone is a feminist by default. If you are not, you are opposed to gender equality, and there is nothing more foul and horrid than being opposed to gender equality, i.e. feminism. It is clever worldwide emotional manipulation, and it works. It works so well that pointing out the faulty reasoning and logic behind feminism, or pointing to the blatant hatred of men so abundant within feminism, will result in, oh well, those are not real feminists, feminism is about equality. By whose authority then, I feel inclined to ask, is feminists the only ones allowed to speak on issues of gender? Why, by golly, by the authority of feminism, of course. See how that works? Criticism of feminism is turned on its head and drawn full circle to its vague and empty-headed emotional circular logic reasoning of, see, this is why we need feminism. And those of us who actually believe that the sexes should be treated equally, that is, equal rights which come with equal responsibility and accountability, are waved away as woman-hating misogynists of the foulest, meanest sort. For simply daring to point out the many ways in which men are not, in fact, treated equally, be that under the law or in society as a whole. By declaring themselves the sole savior of gender, meaning women of course, and playing on the gynocentrism inherent in us as a species, they have been able to occupy all the space there is to speak on gender issues. They have colonized our shared spaces, and the mycelium grows like mad, claiming one and all under their dominion. Gender equality has come to mean this. All genders are equal, but some genders are more equal than others. By manipulating the media and our politics cleverly with laced words and veiled notions of equality, hiding their hatred and shaming of men across decades behind the backs of a supposed radical few who are not real feminists, they have managed to dehumanize men to such an extent that we are not heard when we speak about issues affecting us. Not heard, nor taken seriously, and ridiculed more often than not. Dehumanize and carry on. Cultivate female friendships. Let's band together to kill all men. Yet they claim that feminism helps men too, by helping women. Men help men too, by helping women, and only women. It is astounding in both its arrogance and absurdity, and I don't much care about your soggy knees anyways. I've got my own issues to worry about. Men have their own issues and their own needs, and attempting to solve these issues through the warped magician's lens of feminism will do naught but bring forth the ruination of both our Western societies and men as a whole. One would not be amiss to believe that this is their purpose. The dehumanizing of men has gone on for so long and reached so far into our culture that it has become nigh invisible. We are so used to seeing it that we don't notice it, even if it is waving its filthy hands right in our downcast eyes. Which brings me at long rambling last to when I reached my breaking point and started writing about these things. Why I do what I do and in the way I do. As I stated previously, it does stem from a place of selfishness, if one would be inclined to label it as such. It has been a slow awakening for me, yet it all seemed so sudden. Over the past 5 or 6 years, more and more of my friends, both in social media and in real life, started spewing what can only be described as vile hatred of men in general and white men in particular. Little at first, then more and more, coming to the realization that every single one of my friends, bar only a few, saw no issues at all in hating me based on my gender and the color of my skin, was not an easy task. And when they were called out on it, the responses was something akin to, "Oh, not you, fragile masculinity, blah blah, not all men, but most men, blah blah, it is our turn now." According to these people and these views, men are not fully human beings. Or we deserve whatever comes our way because some men have been evil for too long, or some such garbled, nonsensical mumbo fucking jumbo, which makes them feel just and makes them feel righteous and makes them feel, not least of all, good about themselves. To be clear, I have been noticing things like this my entire life. To me, at any rate, it is only recently that everyone and their moms seem to spout the same vacuous bullshit, or share the same dim-witted view that all men are privileged scum, and as a result the one group in society onto which all bile may be spewed and all wishes for death and dismemberment are A-OK. Then there is the idea to get rid of any and all gendered words, an idea of feminists which seem particularly ridiculous when you look at their own gendered terms, such as mansplaining, manslamming, manspreading, etc. I left Facebook, never looking back, shortly after a supposed friend shared an article with a title something akin to, "I walked with the entitled swagger of a white man for a week. Everything men do is wrong. How we sit, how we talk, and now, how we walk." That was the straw that broke the camel's back, and made me finally leave my self-imposed hermiting to try and talk about these things in the only way I know, through drawings and prose. Men are now effectively second-class citizens, to such an extent that articles and videos and what have yous which vilify and demonize men are shared willy-nilly by one and all, with no consideration on the effect this has on men within their own fucking circle of friends and family. Because men are nothing but mere homunculi to shame and ridicule and dance to their tunes for their amusement. And everyone plays along, as if this is a perfectly fine thing to do. Mothers telling their sons that they are rapists in waiting? A-OK. Teachers doing the same? Quite alright. Media also? Go on. Ain't no thing. But don't you dare disagree with one single woman. By the logic of these malicious tyrants, this makes you hate all women. Their claim is that the reason for disagreeing with a woman is her gender, not what she says. And by pulling the victim by virtue of vagina card, the ones in opposition are shamed and bullied into silence, by a rampaging mob of fevered madness collapsing into the moldiest abyss of socially approved hatred. Unless the woman is a conservative, or a non-feminist, then she is also fair game to the feminists, because women are strong and powerful and one should always listen to them. Unless they are non-feminists, and unless they speak on behalf of themselves and not feminism. Straying from the path of feminism makes women heretics. Burn the witch. She is a gender traitor, a festering sore on the trembling lips of the messianic sisterhood of feminism. Name me, I implore, one other human rights organization claiming to be the only human rights organization allowed to speak on behalf of human rights. And show me, please, how the garbled woo of patriarchy theory differs from the Jewish banking conspiracy. See, the term feminazi originated for good reason. The Nazis blame the Jews with garbled conspiracy nonsense, and the feminists blame men with muddled conspiracy bullshit, and the only differences are popularity and gender. And of course, with the birth of intersectional feminism, in which feminism, in its grandiosity, care and compassion, co-opted the cause of other groups under their laced panties umbrella term equality, sexuality and skin color and able-bodiedness also play a significant part in their victim narrative poop. And they aim at being the only movement allowed to speak on behalf of perceived equality. To create a monumental monolithical church under which all banners aiming at equality wave, all painted in the same colors and all flying the same flags. Different causes, same cause. Women first, then the rest. The reach and might and influence of feminism is immense. Power corrupts, and feminism is corrupt. It is rotten at the core. What follows in this wake is the suppression of free speech, denying someone their right to express themselves because someone's feelings may be hurt in the process. This is incredibly frightening, a gallant glide into the waiting arms of totalitarianism. Liberty dies to the sound of thundering applause. Free speech applies only to the few, whose hate speech is not hate speech because the targets for the hate speech are men. Every other group is to be protected. Then it follows. If every group in society but one is protected, what does that really say about one group that is not protected? To the reasonable mind, this group is not in any way, shape or form privileged. And yet the claim is that it is. That the reason for protecting every other group, this one group, is that this group is privileged. Never mind that expending special protection to some groups but not others is by definition privileging those groups at the expense of the other. I honestly believe that all and one should be allowed to speak their mind, to try their ideas, however stupid, silly or hateful, on the grand battlefield of ideas. This includes feminists. My aim is not to stifle their speech. Far from it. The more hate they spew and the more open they feel they may spew it, the more they show their shriveled, rotten and unbeating hearts. That push from feminists to stifle speech in opposition to their speech should tell all one needs to know. And yet, in my mind's eye and in my darkest moments, I envision ethereal medieval castles enveloped in fog, a dreary and corrupted feudal system built around feminism. Scraps trickling down from the quivering lips of goddess queens, dribbling down onto the hungry masses, each with their own place in the victim hierarchy with needs needing to be met. These needs then being graciously met, offered from the hands of the goddess queens themselves, to each according to their needs and from each according to their abilities. And then, who decides what one's needs are and who decides what one's abilities are? Downwards the trickling go, until men are left with the hardest labour and the driest, mouldiest crumbs. Equality and justice for all is served following the rules as laid down in dusty, cobwebbed tomes of feminist academes of ages past. Vague history, barely remembered at all, and with all nuance and all fact and all truth hidden away in sacred chambers where neither man nor woman dare tread under pain of death. I see dystopia emanating in waves from the burning, sacred heart of feminism. A future both sterile and putrid, with all sense of humour stripped away, and all speech and all conduct governed by laws impossible to abide by, for all but the saintliest of saints and godliest of goddesses. I see the totalitarian tango danced through streets lit brightly at night by radiant spotlights, eternally searching for offence. And if no offence is found, offence will be conjured forth by high priestesses, immaculate in their cleanliness and virtue. The walls of civilization will crumble, and all that remains is a whispered word of ages past. Equality. A word which has lost all meaning through the phantasmal dance of time. And the glowing embers of madness will be fanned into an all-consuming fire, to cleanse the world of non-believers and bring forth the shining light of the future. Progress for the sake of progress, with no thought and no pause and no purpose but to tear down and rebuild for the sake of tearing down and rebuilding. And I sit here, and I write, and I sit here, and I draw, about these topics, and I try, to the best of my abilities, to shine a light on this. Maybe it will help, maybe it will not. At the very least, I will go to my grave knowing that I did something right with my life, that I partook in fighting one battle for a just and good cause, in a small and most likely insignificant way. And yet I did it, and yet I tried, and that is not all bad.